Hello, and welcome to a Frenchish episode of the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. With us today, Shawn Fawcett of Signature Finish Renovations out of Guelph, Ontario. Shawn is a first-generation drywaller with a knack for picking up skills, but quickly found himself gravitating toward drywall. But he always wasn't fond of the construction industry.
In high school, I took a carpentry course, and I had dropped out of it halfway and said, I don't want to be a carpenter. I'm never going to be a carpenter. And It wasn't because I was doing bad. I was actually getting 80s and 90s. I just thought, there's no money in this, and what kind of life is this? And I don't want to work on a construction site, and there's a better life.
His reluctance gave way to construction, and his skills come from a French influence, but he's developed his own style. I've known Shawn, or Fawz as they call him, for about a year now, and I'm glad we finally got a chance to catch up on this episode of the Drywall Podcast. You guys asked, and I listened. Now the Drywall Podcast can be watched in its entirety on our YouTube page. Head over to the Drywall Podcast on YouTube and hit the subscribe button and settle in for 77 episodes of enjoyment. The Drywall Podcast today was brought to you by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. Wondering what to do about that pesky, ugly, textured, painted wall in your home? Well, think no further. You can use Fresco Harmony to go right over that ugly texture and paint and make your walls and the energy in your room beautiful and harmonious. Curious about becoming a sponsor of the Drywall Podcast? Well, let me solve your curiosity by telling you to reach out and get in touch with me directly at info@frescoharmony.com, or you can give me a call directly at 505-400-9313. But for now, Shawn Fawcett on the 77th episode of the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it.
Hey man, how's it going?
What's up?
Not much.
The squeeze play, dude. We're doing the squeeze play. I love it.
Does that work?
Sweet.
There we go.
That's a little bit of Fresco on that backsplash. I remember you and Shawn doing that.
Yeah, that was a fun time. Yeah, but the coolest part about it that really blew me away was the sealer. And I don't know if I can get it on video, but
oh yeah, it shows. That's 2 coats of the gloss, right?
Yeah, or I think it was the flat or satin, or maybe I can't remember.
The gloss can be a little bit more protective. That's pretty good protection though.
Yeah, man, I'm like really impressed with that. That like blew me away.
It's not bulletproof, but that shit is pretty cool. I mean, I tout it as the first drywall specific sealer in the world, I mean, there hasn't been a color line for drywall mud. Naturally, there needs to be a sealer. I guess there doesn't need to be, but it always needed a sealer. And that sealer didn't come first. When we did a plaster job up in Crested Butte, they were using like a round sponge on like Ocon type plaster sealer. And I was like, okay. And I was doing art with acrylic wood varnish, water-based wood varnish. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I will sponge on wood varnish, to the color joint compound. That would be how I do it. And I did that for a couple years. 1 coat wasn't enough, so I would do 2 coats of the sponge on varnish, and it was horrible to work with. And when I moved to Albuquerque, I was like, there's got to be a trowelable sealer, like a heavy-duty trowelable sealer, and I found Modern Masters makes this stuff called Venetian Top Coat, and comes in a gallon. And I used that for several years. until this new sealer came along. That stuff it was good, but it would flake when it got a little bit cold. It would flake really bad. And
Interesting.
Modern Masters sold that company, or something about them selling to Glidden, like Glidden bought them out or something. And they changed the chemical makeup of that sealer, and it got less protective, and it was stinky, really like ammonia. It had this horrible ammonia that would stink up the houses. And so I went on the search for a sealer, and we found this stuff, and I vetted it pretty heavily. And, it has some characteristics that, we're dealing with the manufacturing and stuff like that, but it's really cool stuff.
Yeah. And it's not like, it doesn't really have much of an odor to it. Like it has a bit of an odor like a sealer would, but it doesn't like overpower the house. Like, as you said, that one stuff. And to go to your note though, you were saying like, does it need to be sealed? I guess like paint seals drywall or primer, right? So because you cut that out, then it would need to be sealed. And as I said, I'm completely blown away that it has like a water beating, like it's that strong, I guess, or that, that resilient, right? So
yeah. And it's not every wall. You guys sealed that twice, so yeah.
Yeah, I put 2 coats on, but it was only like one of the sample, like, to be honest with you, the amount that I put on there was like one of the little sample jars.
Okay. Yeah, it's a small area.
Yeah, but and I did put it on pretty thick, and I'll probably like, coat it maybe like every 2 years or something like that with just a sealer, just to, freshen it up, right?
Yeah, why not? Or you could reskim it with a different color and seal it if you get tired of that color.
Yeah.
Totally user friendly. We have Shawn Fawcett, and is that correct?
Yeah.
Faucett.
Yep. I should have been a plumber. Fawcett's Plumbing.
Yeah, for sure. And you are in Ontario. Is there a specific part of Ontario that you're in?
Yeah, right now I live in Guelph.
How do you spell that?
But Guelph, Guelph.
Guelph, Ontario.
Yeah.
And Signature Finish Renovations, that's your company?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my signature is on every bit of work I do. That's why I kind of came up with that name. But it also stands for my initials, Shawn Fawcett, right? SF.
Ooh.
Signature Finish.
I like that.
Yeah. My slogan is what is it? Yeah. My slogan is let my craftsmanship put a signature finish on your next renovation.
Excellent. And so renovation, that's more than just drywall, I would assume, correct?
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I've been super fortunate with my upbringing, and I've been exposed to a lot, and I've had a knack for certain things, and other things it takes a little bit more work to be good at, but I can do it at the end of the day, right? So and it's one of those things, like, I don't know, it's just the way I was brought up into it, right? I never was brought up into like just doing one thing all the time. So the exposure to multiple trades like tiling, taping, basic carpentry, everything, right? Then
okay.
So yeah.
We'll get into all that, Foz. We'll get into all that. And you go by Foz, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was just a nickname that was given to me at the golf course. It was like
I like
the Fawns, and then it was Fozzie Bear, and then it was like Fozzie, and then I just stuck with it after the golf course. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you don't know the Fawns, if you're younger, the Fawns was the coolest cat on TV from the famous show Happy Days. Who Ron Howard was in. He was a youngster in Happy Days. If you don't know who Ron Howard is, he directed a ton of stuff, Backdraft, all kinds of stuff. Fantastic director and also actor. He's pretty funny. But Henry Winkler is the Fonz.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I guess it's a clash between the Fonz and then Fozzie Bear.
Fozzie Bear.
From from the Muppets or whatever, right?
Yeah, Fozzie Bear.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
cool. And you and I met at CSR. Was that the first time that we had met at the training, or was it at the Black Friday event?
no, I didn't go to that Black Friday event.
Okay.
But yeah, it was at that event that you hosted at CSR, which was awesome. That was a super fun day, and you're really good at that, like teaching. And
Thanks.
but it's funny though because I was on Steve from Whitby Drywall. I was on his live, and he was going on about how he's unsure about Fresco, and I'm just like, man, it's
Yeah.
so simple. It's so simple. Like you don't. He's like, I need Nick. He's like, I need Nick to teach me. Like I got to take like a week. I'm like, a week, man. Like he was teaching us all in like 2 minutes, but it's so simple. Like he's just like, yeah, have at it. Like you're breaking all the rules. That's so awesome.
Yes, we break the rules. And that, but to it's different. It's different than what you normally would do. I just did a patch around a fireplace. They put in the stovepipe, but they had to. It was going through like a beam, so they had to frame and cut out this giant hole, and the ceiling was gallery pearl, and I was able to patch. It didn't they did kind of a crappy job, and then I had to put the same piece that came down, like I had to put that back in. I could have probably used a new piece, but I was being lazy. It was for a friend, and put that back in. I used a 6-inch fiber fuse to offset it because
Okay.
the offset was like a 1/4 inch. You could still see a little bit of wave in it, but then so I hit that with quickset fiber fuse, and then I blew over it with a big coat, of Fresco Harmony. And you don't have to feather the edge because I'm blending into Fresco Harmony on the
Yeah.
ceiling. And I was just looking at that thing, and I just wanted to throw it up so that she wouldn't have to look at a giant hole in her ceiling. But like even
Yeah.
that coat looked good. Like it matched, the dried Fresco Harmony. And then I did another coat, and then another coat, and then I sponged off the edge. And each coat, I'm floating that patch out. I'm floating that patch flat, but I'm not floating it like you'd normally float a patch. I'm leaving these big lap lines everywhere. And then
Exactly.
you skim it out, your final coat, you skim it out tight, you've got that Fresco Harmony look. And I just used a round edge sponged my edges, and then sealed it. Nothing, dude. Not even in the sun. Like it's like gone.
Nice.
Um, and that's just and I even did a little video. I didn't post it. I don't know why, but it's like, dude, try doing that with past plaster. Like it's probably a 3x3, 4x4 patch on a ceiling. It's just gone. So there's certain advantages, but going back to we are creatures of habit, like the drywall community. It's kind of like, we get stuck in our ways a little bit. And so it's understandable that, and also specialty wall finish gets kind of a bad rap because it is wrapped around, oh, you got to take this class. You have to be certified to use this product. There's like this stigma around plaster where it's like you have to be an expert or something. And I feel like Fresco Harmony is more paint by numbers. Like
Yeah.
dump the color pack in, smear it on the
Yeah.
wall as best you can, do another coat with the same color, seal it, and be done. It's about
Yeah.
speed and cost. So that it's not there's and I mean I'll get like a little bit less now, but I'll get like backlash against like from the plaster community, or maybe people looking down their nose at it or something. But it's just colored drywall mud. No need to get your panties in a bunch.
Yeah. And I think that too, like, because like obviously when like the mishap at well, I shouldn't say mishap, but like at CSR, that event, like that wasn't planned. Like I just borrowed Shawn's or Nathan's knife with and they had black, and it was on the tang of the knife. And I wanted to go do like the little 4x4 or 2x2 squares that we had. And and then next thing you know, the grays mixing with the black, and it was like, oh, and everyone was coming over like, oh, Venetian plaster, and I was like, this just happened. Like I was going to say, I was going to say I have to start over again and everyone was kind of like, oh, it's cool, and then I ended up doing it on the big wall, right? And then now it's on the backsplash. But the amount of people that have been like, oh, is that Venetian plaster? Is that Venetian plaster? I'm like, no. And then I kind of like looked into Venetian plaster, and I'm like, man, like this is like craziness when you can like why, like that's just so. It would be like someone saying that they want to do plaster and lath in their entire house. You know what I mean? It would be like, why? Like there's drywall and drywall compound now. Like, like,
right.
Yeah,
exactly. No,
I
go to jobs in Santa Fe and they're still lathing. They're lathing the interior and prepping it for plaster.
Yeah.
It's insane. It's insane. And then forget about patching that shit. Like, it's honestly, it's worse than wallpaper. At least wallpaper you can take off. Plaster, it's like and then you're never going to be able to put a nail in it.
No, what a mess too.
Just like, hard as nail. It's just hard as nails. Which people tout the durability, and all of this of plaster. It's still a wall. It's going to get marred or scratched or gouged or nicked or whatever. I don't care how hard it is. You're going to get spider cracking or water damage or whatever. And if you can't patch it, then what good is it? So there's a lot more to it when you start going down the rabbit hole. But I was late. I missed the first day of that training. I got stuck in Denver flying out. That was a tough one.
Yeah, but I think I don't know. I thought to myself, I was like, who was really going to come out on a Thursday, right? Like Friday seemed to be the day, right? But it was sure. I think there was bad weather, right, all around, but it was a good turnout, and
it was
it was very hands on. You went around and spent time with everyone like individually, which was nice. And I don't think you would have been able to do that if there was a bigger crowd, right? So. It was good, right? Like
we need to do another one. We should do another one. It was a lot of fun. We probably get a better turnout now. And with Shawn doing these crazy fresco adventures, though, those are sort of turning into fresco trainings. We have another one coming up in Vancouver, BC, where they're going to do a bunch of hanging, but I'm talking with the designer and the owner, and I'm trying to get a bunch of fresco. And what I'd like to do is like, there's a group of people that are going and they're going to share in the drywall finishing aspect of the project. I'd like to do a training around the Fresco Harmony and be like, if you want to get out, if you want to come out to Vancouver, BC, your accommodations can be taken care of while you're there, and you could train on the wall. I'll be up there, and it'll be a bunch of fun. And we're doing a real life project, and we're making it look awesome. So I think that's in the works. I'd way rather do a training like that where we're actually doing somebody's house and busting some footage.
Yeah, man, that would be pretty cool. Like a pretty cool opportunity for sure.
Let's talk.
Yeah, like Shawn's obsessed. Broly's dad is like obsessed with Fresco. It's awesome. He's like the face of Fresco now. I feel like it's awesome.
It's been, and just for all of you out there that maybe listen to the Drywall podcast or follow Fresco Harmony a little bit, like I don't pay him a cent to. He's just helping. He's helping me promote Fresco Harmony, and shout out for that, because there's things that I'm good at. There's things that I'm not good at. And, when it's your product, you're really close to it. And I don't, I don't want to shove it down anybody's throat or anything like that. It's a system that works. I use it. I do Fresco Harmony projects here and make money in Albuquerque with it. And it's something that I wanted to share with the drywall community. It's just a color system for joint compound, and a way to take joint compound, color it perfectly from batch to batch, and make cool walls, whether you're going over level 3 drywall or painted ugly ass texture. You can just go right over it. It's cool.
Yeah.
And did you know Shawn before that training, or did you guys meet there?
Yeah, briefly, like maybe like a month or two before that training, I had met Shawn. I made a couple goofy Instagram posts, and I guess it drew some attention. And Shawn was one of them. He thought I was hilarious, so
Yeah.
he followed me, and then we ended up meeting up. And he was talking about the Fresco event, and I was like, "Oh, really? Like, okay." And yeah, he's like, "You should go." So then, anyways, yeah, I ended up going to that event because of him. Like, I don't know if I would have stumbled upon it if it wasn't for him per se. And yeah, so that was a fun day. And then yeah, then he only lives like 20 minutes from me, so him and
Okay.
yeah. So I mean, we're both pretty busy, but we've met up. And Nate, we were at one point having wings, like, I don't know, once a month type thing. So yeah,
Yeah. Nathan Binkle.
yeah, yeah,
Nate from Nate's Drywall here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another
Yeah.
awesome guy. Another awesome
Yeah,
guy.
you guys are all like big teddy bears, man. They should call you guys the three bears.
Yeah, yeah,
You're all so friendly. And it was great to me. I think Nathan was at the training. Maybe he wasn't. I can't remember. Was he at the Fresco training?
yep. He was.
He was. Okay. Yeah, there was a gaggle. I was so tired. I got in at like 11. I woke up at like 6, and then we went all day, and CSR had their opening in Barrie, Ontario that day.
Yeah,
At their Barrie location. It was so cool. Such a
yeah,
great day. And then the next day I flew back. I flew out. It was crazy. It was just a whirlwind.
yeah. But it seems like you do
Um,
that a lot, though. Sometimes I follow you along, and I'm like, wow, he's here, there, everywhere. Like, and he's a family man. Holy jeez, this guy.
yeah, I do. I mean, I'll take off. I've traveled my whole life though, so I don't, it's not, it's still practice though. You have to get your plane ticket or you have to make a plan and go. I talk about it a little bit, but it's important. I think it's important to travel. It's important for my son to, he's grown up learning how to travel, and he's good with people and things like that. I think it's even when he was an infant, I think it's important. Like, I think we went to Las Vegas on my 40th birthday. He was like 6 months old.
No way. That's awesome.
Just toddler, cruising around Vegas with a stroller and an infant. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, I
Um,
definitely agree. Like traveling, like one of the most humbling things in my life was when I went to South America and went to the Galapagos Islands and
yeah,
Machu Picchu and stuff. And
there
when
you
I came
go.
back, like that was in my 20s, and I remember coming back and just being super humble and fortunate for, it was life changing. And
Yeah,
even remotely traveling, like I've just gotten recently into backpacking and like just going off into the woods and traveling that way, right? Like
yeah,
it's good just to, yeah, there's all different forms to travel, but it's not,
yeah,
hey, what's that saying? It's not getting to the destination, it's how you got there, right? You gotta, along
yeah.
your travels, you gotta make sure that you really take in and have experiences. If you just rush through with your head down through your travels, then what's the point, right?
I like it. There's a saying, those who life is a great book, those who never stray from home read only a page, something like that.
That's a good one. I like that. I like
um,
that.
Foz, Shawn Fawcett, signature finish renovations. Are you primarily drywall, or are you a remodel person?
I guess I'm a remodel person.
You're a
I don't know.
remodel person. How did you get into, on the strength of 1 to 10, how strong would you say your drywall chops are? Hanging, finishing, texturing, all that.
See, I'm a pretty modest guy, and I'm helping out my buddy's dad right now, and he used to tape subdivisions.
Okay.
And he taped subdivisions in the 80s, and he's like primarily drywall. Like that's, and you know, it wasn't until we got, like, this is only a couple of weeks ago, and I was coding everything, and we got in the truck and driving home, and he looks at me and he's like, "You coated a fair amount of drywall, eh?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, like your seams, like they're really nice." I was like, "Wow, thanks, man. That means a lot." I'm always
Yeah.
pretty modest. I know. See, like I was taught by a third generation Frenchie as well. Like this guy was Roger, the guy I'm doing work for right now. He's a Frenchie taper. But the guy that taught me was Denis. He was a third generation
Now,
taper.
wait a second. Wait a second. You say Frenchy taper. Now, to all of our listeners,
Yeah, sorry.
wait, all of our listeners in the United States, I just want to remind our U.S. listeners that there's a heavy French influence in your area. So there's a lot of French. So when you say Frenchy, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, Denis from Quebec, and
Okay.
and Roger's actually from like up north, like Thunder Bay, right? So
Okay.
yeah, there's a lot of, it's just French. They talk oui monsieur, like not like France, but like Denis always used to say something like, when he would skim out a butt joint, he'd be like, "Okay, Shawn, this is the most important," like in a French accent, he'd be like, "Ah, this is the
Okay.
most important part," and it would be like finishing in one swipe, right? And I'm like, "All right, Denis." You'd be, or like, "Nice and creamy. The mud is nice and creamy. The corner bead." Like that's what I had to listen to all the time.
All right.
But they're so passionate. The one thing about the French is they're always so passionate about their work, right? So, but
Okay.
but yeah. Anyways, yeah. No, I've always been pretty modest, because you got to keep in mind, like I've been taught by old school, where it's all like, originally the way I'm taught is mesh tape and Durabond on my joints, and then everything's done by hand, right? So like I was taught how to do inside corners by hand, and it wasn't until I left that guy that I was working for and I found out about the Can-Am kit. I messaged him. I was like, "Dude, I cannot believe that you do inside corners like this." Like knowing that this tool exists, right? And I still haven't even dabbled into boxes yet, right? So
yeah, but that's a testament. That's a testament to the stubbornness. Even the Frenchies, like they're stubborn, right? Like maybe it's like, no, Shawn, we do it this way. This way is this way is proper.
yeah, exactly. But I mean, with Roger, the guy that I'm doing some work for right now, he used to run boxes and tools, and his son is actually a full-time taper. One of his sons that I know well is a full-time taper, and he's very familiar with the boxes and stuff. But he's like, for the basements and for the main floor renos that I just do it all by hand myself. Like, like he has a flusher, he has a compound tube, but like he doesn't have any. He sold all his boxes to the one son, right? So he knows about boxes. I've never used one, and I've never been exposed to it, right? So it's funny to ask me about taping, because like when I go to events like the three-way event and the Fresco event, and I meet these guys, and I'm like, oh my God, they're on a whole different level than I feel Amish. Like I feel like I'm freaking a Mennonite taping. Like it's stuck in the 1800s, like
it's good to have that. It's good to have that modesty. That's an attribute, I believe. But on the Drywall Podcast, buddy, you can let that veil down and you can just soak it all in. This is about you. This is about you. We want to hear and more to vet your skill level. It's like qualifying yourself to be on the Drywall Podcast, so that people know, well, he's not just a remodeler that says, oh, anybody can do drywall. You've done a lot of drywall. You've learned from some amazing finishers, it sounds like, and you know what you're talking about. So more for that reason than anything else. How did you are you first generation drywaller, or was your dad a remodeler? How did that come to be?
Yeah, no, my dad wasn't very handy, so I guess growing up, I always tried to be handy around the house, to be honest. So,
okay.
But yeah, it was funny though, because like I managed the gas station out of high school, and my bosses at the time were like, "You're going to be in the trades. You're going to be in the trades." And in high school, I took a carpentry course, and I had dropped out of it halfway and said, "I don't want to be a carpenter. I'm never going to be a carpenter." And it wasn't because I was doing bad. I was actually getting 80s and 90s. I just thought, there's no money in this, and what kind of life is this? And I don't want to work on a construction site, and there's a
Right.
better life, because you're young and stupid, kind of
Yeah.
immature, and you think that you're going to make millions like every other kid, right? Like
Sure.
on whatever, right? So, yeah, and then it wasn't until I actually had to find a job when the gas station sold, and I asked a bunch of contractors, and luckily one guy that primarily did carpentry
Okay.
um, took me on. And I would watch these three guys come in and tape this house. Like, it was the three brothers that he hired all the time. So he subbed out all the tiling and taping. But the craziest part about this, honestly, Nick, this one guy, he was like 350 to 400 pounds on stilts. I was like, holy
Yeah.
crap, man. This looks like some X-Men character. Like, it's insane. Like, it was insane. Like,
He was
and
pushing he was pushing the stilt boundary for weight.
yeah, but he
Probably.
had no problem, and man, it was impressive. But yeah, and then anyways,
So wait,
where were we?
you saw those guys. You're starting out. You started with a framing crew, so you're learning about
Yeah,
framing, and
well,
you see these,
basically, yeah.
or sorry, carpentry. You see these three crazy ass drywallers come in, and you're like, whoa, what's that? So maybe the seed was planted. Then you're like, that looks cool.
Yeah, and then I was very intimidated by it, right? Because um there was always this persona that is like very hard, or you have to be really good at it, right? And
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
and anyways, when I worked with Steve, the second guy that would bring in Denis, the guy that taught him, Steve kind of looked at me one day and was like, man, well, are you going to put the first coat on this? And I was like, I don't know, man. Like, are you sure you want me to? And he's like, okay, there's only one way that you're going to learn how to do this. So let's go. Let's get going, and really push me. And I went off into the corner, I think, of a closet, and skimmed out like
Yeah.
a seam or a butt joint. And he's like, come get me when you're done. And I was like, okay. And then um, he came and looked at it, and I think he was being quite like
Yeah,
encouraging to
he
say.
was like, "This is the worst freaking seam I've ever seen, Shawn. Way to go!"
Yeah, I'm sure he wanted to say that, but the words that came out of his mouth were, I don't think I could have done a better job. And I thought, yeah, right, okay, whatever. But
Okay.
I did have a knack for it, and he did admit it,
Yeah.
because there was many times where he was like, honestly, man, I think we found your knack. And I
Okay.
was like, really? And he's like, yeah, man, like you're pretty good at this. We just gotta get you better. Like, and I
And what was
like
your
Steve.
impression? What was your impression of the mud? Okay, so they're seeing that you have some potential. What was your impression of the mud? Did you like it right away? Was it were you like,
Yeah,
"Oh,
but
I could do this"?
yeah, I did. But then I think I also was trying to be too picky at first, and I was spending too much time on things that I technically shouldn't have. And it wasn't accomplishing anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I was constantly trying to roll out like ridges and stuff like that, but making more work and more mess for me, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, it was funny because like the most frustrating thing was is that Steve and Denis were rocking trowels, and for the life of me, I could not handle a trowel, right? Like, I could not get the mud to cooperate. So I actually just went to knives, and I could keep up with them and coat the way they wanted me to coat with knives, like from like 8 to 12, and yeah, and then long story short is actually Christy Slade was the one that suggested for me to use a trowel. And I guess just over a year ago, I've been starting to use a trowel, and now I can't use my knives. So, but yeah, I know, it just like drywall seemed to be a knack for me. And I just went with it. And then I found more people always were looking for like drywall work, like on the side while I was working for someone. Like, hey, can you come tape this? Because no one wants to tape, or they're not good at it, and they want it done, like a nice way. So I just ended up taking all these weekend and after hours work that were drywall related, that ended up having a knife in my hand, and I got better and better and better at it, right?
Is you are learning to finish drywall from these Frenchmen, Denis specifically, guy named Denis.
So Denis taught Steve, and then Steve was like my renovations boss, right? So Steve wasn't French, but Steve would bring in Denis, and then Denis would teach me, right? So, and I think I was just saying there that they used to use trowels, and at first I didn't feel comfortable with a trowel and hawk, so I actually used knives, like the 8-inch to 12-inch knives, and
like crazy Americans.
Yeah. Actually, TK Drywall is big on knives. That guy's a phenomenal. See, like Danny is a guy, like I'm going to make time to listen to that podcast. Danny, Dr.
Oh yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
he's a riot.
Him, like Danny and TK Drywall are like the first two guys that I really started following, and I think they're both animals, just complete animals.
Danny's a beast. Like, see him like the hanging, like the guys that are good at hanging always like, it's like, dang, he's, not only can he finish really well, but he like, throws that stuff up. It's just so cool to watch.
Yeah, and even his balance, like even on the Segway with his stilts, with the freaking box, like it's what? And I knew that he was a different caliber, but then when I watched him on Tough as Nails, like when there was a TV show here that was called Tough as Nails.
Yeah,
and it was good. And I remember seeing the cast, and I was like, is that who I think it is? No, what? And I was like pumped, and then it actually made me follow along.
Well, don't say too much. Don't say too much. We keep it kind of on the DL, so that if somebody is wants to go watch the season, because I watched the season, I kind of know I kind of knew what happened, although I wish I wouldn't have, because it's such a like cliffhanger at the end. But it was good because, and I was actually texting Danny during, because we just watched it, so I'm texting Danny about like where I'm at in the show and like what's going on, and he's laughing and being like, oh yeah, like they shouldn't have done this, or they shouldn't have done that, or this person was being funny, or this person was getting mad, or he was very passionate about the show, though. Like it just speaks volumes about his like passion for life, and he was really like taking it very seriously. This was a big, and they were on the show, I'll say a little bit, but this will drop in the interview too, but they were cut off for like a month, no cell phones, like they weren't even able to interact with each other. So we talk about all that. It's a really fun episode. I think people are going to enjoy it.
Yeah, well, and they even brought Danny back, like in the season 2, they brought Danny back in for the drywall episode. Like there was the task of doing drywall, and they brought Danny in for that, which I thought was cool. I was like, that's awesome.
I watched season 1, and then I watched episode, I think it was like episode 2 or whatever, season 2, episode 7 or 8, when they do the drywall section. I watched that, and that's all I've seen of Tough as Nails, but it's really well done. Good show. Check it out if you haven't seen it. So we've got these inspirational type characters that you follow. Christy Slade, though, was your inspiration for the trowel. Yeah.
She
how did that happen?
She just kept on like talking to me, saying that like I would be way better with a trowel and this and that, and I'm like yeah, and then she was like going on about like how all the guys that she works with like use a trowel, and it's funny because even Roger the other day had a curved trowel, and she was going on about the difference between curved and flat, and I used Roger's curved trowel to do a first coat. And I was like, I'm buying one. Like now I know. I like curved on the first, coat.
What do you mean What do you mean curved?
Like curved in the trowel, like like you can get curved trowels and flat trowels, right?
Oh, interesting. I did not know that. Like on the edge, like the edge of the trowel?
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh.
it has like a flex to it. It's like concave or whatever, right? So when you skim, you're packing out more into that, or coat. Sorry, when you're coating your first coat, you're packing out more into
Now when you put pressure on the
dimple.
trowel, when you put pressure on the trowel, does the trowel flatten out?
It does, but it's still like a 16th. Like Roger showed me that. He's like, watch what I he's like, when I put up your flat trowel, he's like, look, like he did it on a flat piece of drywall. And he's like, look, and he's like, now when I push, he's like, you're taking out, like you're taking out of the seam. And he's like,
Yeah.
then look on a curve. And he put it up with no pressure, and there was like an eighth, and then he pushed, and then there was like a still like a 16th, like a hairline. So
Right. Okay.
but yeah, so yeah,
Cam,
Christy was nagging at me to use a trowel, and then I just kind of was like, all right, I'll try it out. And then I was really uncomfortable, like, but I think with a lot of the skills and experience that I had with the knives, it kind of transferred somewhat, and I just forced it to be more comfortable in my hand. And
yeah.
then yeah, and then anyways, now I my game plan was to use my knives for corner bead for whatever reason, just because I wasn't going to use
Yeah.
them anymore, and I didn't care if
Yeah.
they got pitted. And now I can't even use my knives. They don't feel comfortable to me. Like I rather
Yeah.
I can, I shouldn't say that. I use my 6 and 4, and obviously, right, but I just don't
Yeah.
like using my 8 and 10 and 12 inch knives anymore. Now I just use trowel.
Yeah.
So
I can use a
I don't know.
trowel and a pan and knife. I feel like it's good for rounding your education. I think it's good. I think it's healthy for a drywall finisher to know how to run both. I will say though that transition from pan and knife to hawk and trowel is difficult. Like that is like
Yeah.
it's hard to like get used to the trowel. It was for me. Um, yeah, the
Yeah. Well,
camber. That's interesting. The camber of the trowel. I didn't realize certain trowels had a camber to them. That's very cool. Like
yeah.
snow skis, like the new skis, they call them rocker skis. They rock outside like this so that when you're cutting, you get better cut in the
Oh, gotcha.
snow. And they also have side cut as well. They have a side cut ski. So when you lean on the edge of the ski, it grabs when you're turning. Um,
Is that something you're really into, is skiing?
yeah, I like skiing.
Nice.
uh,
I live in Canada, and I wish I did a winter sport, but the winter does nothing for me other than piss me off. It makes me clean off my truck.
yeah, yeah. I lived in Crested Butte, which has more extreme vertical terrain than any other park in Colorado.
No
Um,
way.
yeah, it's pretty rowdy there. And
See, I love mountain biking, so I don't know.
yeah,
I would love that.
oh yeah. But you learn how to finish, and
Yeah.
you still keep up with your carpentry chops. And now all of a sudden, this carpentry business has a new finisher that hangs out with them, or do you just say, "Hey, sorry guys, I'm going to go finish. I like it better."
Uh no, what actually happened was COVID, and I had to stop working for Steve, and I got in with a custom home builder in
Okay,
Oakville. Yeah. So
cool.
they were like, we don't do any drywall work. And I was like, okay, well, I have carpentry background, and one of the owners was like the lead framer at the time, John Barbeau, and he taught me like a lot. And at first he was doubtful of me. Um and then I got to the point where he was requesting for me every day to be on the framing site, and I learned a lot of framing with him. And then
This goes,
the
wait a second. This goes to show you people, like if you show initiative and you're kind of good and you pay attention and maybe have some modesty, people will like take you under their wing and show you what's up. Like
yeah.
I think you got a lot of opportunities to learn because of your openness and just how you are as a human being, you know?
Yeah, and it's just I cared, right? So like I just like when someone expresses the like care for something, it goes a long way, right? I feel like, but Yeah, I've been very fortunate with my upbringing, and that's why. And it's beyond me though, because like when I worked at this custom home builder, there was like 25 carpenters, and some of them knew how to tape, and they were like, I don't want them knowing that I know how to tape, and like screw learning something else. And I'm like, why, man? Like you're still young. Like why not just try it?
What
And
do you
like
mean?
if it's that,
What do you mean? You were thinking that to yourself?
no, like when I would talk to other guys, like because other guys found out that I could tape. I was
Yeah.
about to say, like the custom. So like John was requesting for me every day to be on the framing site, but then when the like the finish side of the custom home builder found out I could tape, they wanted me to come in and patch things that like an electrician or
Yeah,
HVAC guy patch.
of
And
course.
when they I had to float out a staircase one time because the treads were like a quarter inch off the wall. Yeah. And I had to float that all out. And when I did that, then I became like a drywall god to them. And then it was like anything with drywall related, I was pulled to go do that. And then I had John fighting me to be on. It was a cool feeling to
So
get hired.
you're saying the other carpenters were like, "Don't let them know that you know how to finish, dude. They'll be having you mess
Well,
with the
no,
mud."
they didn't.
So
Yeah, well, they also no, they didn't want like there was maybe three guys out of the 25 carpenters that could tape. Not great, but could tape.
sure.
And they wanted it to be like a hidden secret, and like they didn't even know what a travel was because they didn't want to be assigned any taping tasks or anything. So
But
I
you
just
didn't
laugh
get,
at it.
yeah, you didn't give a shit because you don't mind
No,
finishing.
I'm
It
like,
was
what
like,
is wrong with you, man? But
yeah,
it's funny because there's certain guys that only want to have the horizon of one thing. You know what I mean? Like the horizon is a little bit bigger if you go past that one thing. And certain guys would just want to have one thing, like finished carpentry, and that's it.
yeah,
Then that's
yeah.
all they want. And I mean, some tapers are like that. Like all they've done in their lives is tape.
It goes
You
back to
know?
the beginning of the show, Shawn, when we're discussing the Fresco Harmony, and the guy's like, "Oh, I need a week to learn how to do that." Well, it's like all you got to do is tweak your mind a little bit, and I'm the same exact way. I don't do carpentry because it like seems like this big vast thing. If I would have spent, and I talk about like, man, I wish I would have jumped on with a custom home builder. Like, cause those,
Yeah.
it seems like if you want to learn a bunch of shit, jump on with a custom home builder, because you'll learn a ton. I always liked finishing. There's a lot to it. I think once you learn, you kind of have a little niche there where it's based in skill. It's almost like masonry, or a good mason is like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
hard, or a tile guy. Like, oh, anybody can do tile, but like I see a lot of shitty tile.
Yeah,
Like
man.
you watch a good tile guy and they come in and like it's like they're like masters, just
It's
like what
effortless, right?
just like watching Daniel Moody, or Phil finish. It's just like it's a pleasure to watch a true
Yeah.
professional.
And I
I
was
think
saying,
it's no different with Fresco or anything, man. But it's aside from like it's just joint. You're still using joint compound. You already know how to use it.
yeah, no, exactly. And I was actually saying the other day to kind of sum everything up, like I feel like taping now is like my happy place. Like
Okay.
if I'm doing a carpentry project, like building a deck or anything, like I'm constantly thinking in my head because like there's multiple things to consider and take into plan, and you're
Yeah.
always like when you're framing, you're thinking of the plumbing, the tile, the drywall, everything. You're
Yeah.
if you actually care
Yeah.
and want to. Like the one thing John loved me was when we would do a house, like our framers would forget all the drywall back up, and he's like, "Man, can you go knock out all?" He's
Yeah.
like, "I know that you will actually do it because you care," and I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like, look at this. How are the drywallers going to hang a board here?" I would walk through a house and be like, drywall backup like I would point out, like I would be like, it would be like I was working for the drywall company.
Well,
Pointing
and
out all the
and
messed up backup.
look at all the time you're saving that builder and the drywall company because it's getting done properly from the start versus having to go back, or you just frame it shittily and then it's
Yeah,
everything's out and it looks like crap, which is what people
yeah,
normally do.
yeah.
You know.
So like I mean, when I do a carpentry project, I'm more, my mind is more engaged when I'm when I'm taping, I can actually just have like subconscious thoughts and just float around. Like, not really, but you know what I mean? Like I'm way, way more relaxed, when I'm
I
taping.
feel like it's a meditation. Like, cause I even with the Fresco, it's like you did like tons of square footage, like just miles, and you get into it. It's just like a meditation. You can lose yourself.
Yeah. It depends on the day though, right? Like we all have our days where, you know, you get too many hitchhikers in the mud or something, or, you know, whatever. Right. And then that's when taping can be very frustrating, because there's times where I get very frustrated where I'm like, I keep getting a hitchhiker in my mud or something like that, or like a little clump. And I'm like, oh, I just had that nice.
Yeah. It happens with the tools too. The tools will, like, some days are running like smooth and nice, and then some days are just like they're fighting you, you know.
Yeah.
The tools are a learning curve too. So you did adapt some of the semi-automatic methodology from Can-Am. You got some Can-Am tools?
Yeah, I love the corner flusher. I think that was like one of the best inventions ever. I mean, now that I talk to guys that actually tape, like they go on about the mechanical heads, like, you know, with the throttle, with the box on it. That's obviously superior. Like, I wouldn't say superior, because like Can-Am makes a really good product, but I mean, I just started using the variable flow head, and that goes on your compound tube. So like I was using the compound tube and then flushing out my corners. And I would watch these guys run around with like a mechanical head and a box on it, and I'm like, oh my god, that saves so much. That saves even more time. Like, you know, like, because I'm like, oh man. And anyways, I got this variable flow head, and I think that's the bee's knees right now too. So, I guess there's pros and cons to both. Like, you know, the mechanical heads, I think they have a bit of flex to them, right? So they can, like, me being a framer, I know that like a lot of times the corner is not perfectly square, right? Even when the guys try to, but you got characteristics of wood. You're working, like, most people do not realize that most wood, it has a crown and a bow to it. And as much as you want to build that corner nice and straight every time, you're not going to be able to. You know, you got to you got to pick and choose your battles with wood, where you're putting it when you're framing a wall. But again, it comes down to the person who cares who builds it, right? So 9 times out of 10, the corners, even on a brand new build, are not perfectly 90 degrees, right? So you do get a little bit of flex with Can-Am, but it'd be nice to get maybe some more out of it in some scenarios, right?
Love it.
Like the mechanical heads. But yeah, I run the compound tube, and that's probably as far as I go right now, until I mean, Broly's dad has offered me to try out his box with him, which I think is very generous of him. So I would love that, because
it's a good next step. That's a good next step.
Yeah, just to try that out, and especially if I get a basement, right? Like, I did that huge basement, but like that 2,800 square foot basement, so it was like 7,000 square foot of board. I did that all by hand and with my compound tube, and that is the job that I forced myself to use the trowel on. So I had plenty of practice on that job. But I would have loved to have a box on that job, you know. Like, if I could just ran a box on that job, I would have been a lot quicker. And
boxes are amazing. They really are. Very cool invention, and it speeds up the process. Is there anything, I guess, besides the flusher, this Can-Am system that you started using? Is there anything that recently has shifted your opinion about drywall, or that you've been able to, maybe that you didn't think would work, but now you're using this new system and it works really awesome, but you were resistant to it?
I mean, your product would be one of them, Fresco. I wouldn't say resistant to, though. It's just something new to me that I'm like, this is a really cool product, right? Like, and if you can sell it, and once it gets out there more, and you know, I'm more or less interested in trying to get it into someone else's house other than myself. You know what I mean? Like,
That's the biggest aspect that I talk to people about. It isn't how to do it. I think anybody can do it. You know, if you're doing drywall, playing around with mud, you can do it. It's sales. It's all sales. And then somebody will say, you know, oh, well, that doesn't sell up here. It's like, it didn't sell in Albuquerque either until I started selling it. Like people don't know. Like that builder that you work with, we've done several houses here where we do the whole house. Like he's doing, I have custom home builders that I work with here that know about Fresco. We've done the whole house, finished to a level 3. He's doing Parade Homes. He thinks it's the cat's meow.
I'm not really in with clientele like that was, because that was like multi-million-dollar clientele.
Right,
like it was one guy had $60,000 worth of toilets and he only had 6 toilets. Go figure that one. So yeah, like that's a lot of money just to be spent, and they would love something like that, right? And I think that right, and but to be honest with you, a big one is working with Roger right now is he paper tapes all his seams, and as I told you, Denis and Steve taught me to mesh tape and dirt bond, and that's the way I've just always have done it. So I have a bit of resistance towards the paper tape because I have tried it one time and it bubbled and literally blew up in my face. So
I like the paper tape. I mean, paper tape's like that's the OG paper tape, you know. And a lot of finishers will look down their nose at the mesh. And I've had a mesh situation where it all cracked out on an outdoor ceiling. And I like FiberFuse too. So FiberFuse has come into focus for people. I think it has pluses and minuses as well. But the paper tape's always been there. And you're shifting now. You're shifting now and coming around maybe to paper tape. Yeah.
Like when I told Roger, I was like, you know, I use mesh and Durabond. He's like, no, not on my site, like with a French accent, right?
Yeah.
Got all mad and he's like, I've had it cracked too many times. And I'm like, well, I've had paper tape blister on me. And then sure enough, he had like the flat head attachment for the compound tube. So I ran around and put mud up. And he put the tape up and he swiped it himself. And on our seam, we had a bubble. And I was like, I looked at
your mud's probably drying out back there though. It's probably drying. You know, like when you run with a bazooka or a banjo, it spits the mud and the paper out at the same time, man. I mean, the main thing with paper tape is just saturating it with mud. You know, so it's
and
wet.
I might have gotten a little bit too ahead of him with the compound tube, right? But
right.
But there was a blister, and I was just like, I know that wouldn't have happened with mesh tape and Durabond. But then, you know, he fixed it up like it was nothing, right? Like, and watching, and I'm like, oh, so like my worries and my like heebie-jeebies about it. I mean, like if the whole tape is like that, then that's different. But like it was one spot, so it was easy to repair, and so now I'm like, you know what? And I can see, because like in my head now, I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't get any cracks with paper tape. You wouldn't. So
right,
you know what, maybe I should start using
it's like a full bond. It's like full bond, you know.
And it's just funny because it's just like the way I was taught, where it was like, no, paper, not paper tape, and only this way, and and it's all you know, and then you get good at it, and then you go to try something else and you're unsure about it, and then it blows up in your face and you're like, never again, right? And then, you know, it's not until you get like, until I worked with Roger and he's showing me things and I'm like, I got it. Okay. And then it's like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to start incorporating this. So that's a good example of something that I had resistance to and now I'm adapting to. And, but yeah, your product, I don't have resistance to. I think it's an awesome product. It's completely new, and it's so new that the resistance is people don't know about it, right? So we gotta like getting like educating, showing people that this is what it is, and try it in your house. And
Brawley's dad, like he just doesn't give a shit. Like that guy just posts like endlessly every day. He's just like crushing social, you know. And I'm more reserved, maybe a little bit that way. I like the podcast because I'm coming at you sideways a little bit, but he just is like in your face with that shit.
Yeah, man, he's obsessed with it, and I mean, I think so cool. I love it. Like, but you know what the crazy thing is like when I was doing like the backsplash and stuff, he was like asking me how I was doing certain things, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like I'm just mixing it. Like I'm just doing, my body is taking over. My mind's not thinking. And then I started thinking about what I was doing so I could try to like translate it to him. And that's when it became like not difficult, but more not as easy. Like it was, you know what I mean?
I agree. I agree because it's so second nature to me. I'm dumping the color pack in. I'm getting all the color out. I'm putting on the base coat. I know what I can get away with. So I can blow out a room in nothing, like no time. And I'm always like, well, if everybody should be doing this, it's like, you're just coloring mud. They should be finishing houses this way. Like, why not? Like the drywall guy could be making like double in their profit margin. They could be finishing houses, look amazing, like plaster. You know, it's costing you nothing. It's as cheap as paint, you know, and you get like this plaster looking finish. Like, how come they're not? How come this isn't like, it should be a game changer, you know, like that, those types of things. But you go back to, oh, there's a learning curve. Somebody's never done it before. They don't know to leave it messy or what you can get away with, or that I'm not pulling level 5 smooth finish. This is an imperfect smooth, but it looks smooth. You know, that you have to explain that because people don't, especially drywallers, they want everything to be 100% flat. It's so weird.
Well, Shawn was trying to understand how I was making certain streaks with the multiple colors, right? Like how I was like, you know, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like I'm kind of making it go on an angle and I'm using like this edge of my knife. But then when I had to start thinking about it, that's when I couldn't replicate it, right?
Yeah. Well, your backsplash to the listener too. There's a little bit of the backsplash in the beginning of the video. It's more artistic than the normal fresco, where you're just doing 2 coats, same color, no problem. You're doing something a little more artistic, so you can get as artistic as you want. I'm always preaching, keep it simple. Like from the start, do it easy, and then get more complicated as you get familiar.
Yeah, and that's the best part about that, is because I remember you saying that at the Fresco event at CSR.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean though? Like, look what I just did and I didn't even think about it. How hard can it be to duplicate this? Right. And then fast forward like a month to my backsplash and I'm like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
Why can't I do this again? And it was a different space, right? It was also a different space because you don't get the flow of motion
right
the cabinets. But at the same time, though, I was like, and then even like the next day when I was trying to, there's so many variables because it also depends on how wet the mud is, like how dry the mud is, like, you know, what your base coat was, like when you applied the second color during the dry, like there's a lot of variables that will manipulate the 2 colors working together that gives different effects, right? So like anything, right? Like I feel like if you really spent time at it, you could be consistent with the multiple colors and making those patterns and stuff. And you could get it dialed in. You could have like an A, B, C, like I need to have this base coat on and apply this color in a matter of this amount of time to get this swirl effect, right? So, because I've often watched like the CSR video and I'm like, I have the 2 colors like mixing, but one was a little bit drier than the other, and that's why I could pull the black and then it's kind of wild to watch. Like I could pull the black and then the gray would pop through too, but it was like layers.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was weird. They would like overlap each other and mesh. It's just, I don't know. Anyways, it's just really cool. They're really cool.
Yeah, it's cool. I like seeing too people like you get jazzed about it. You know, it's I think it's something that's going to take a while, and the more, you know, when people play with it a little bit, they get kind of hooked a little bit. It's fun.
It will be a thing because the big thing is these accent walls with like the MDF strips and the slats on it, and you're painting it black. And I even thought, like, you know what would be cool is if you did a fresco wall and then you did the MDF slats on top of it, right? Because when it would make that wall just be a little bit more oomph, right? Like it would just like when you do those slats and you paint the wall black, it's just a wall painted black with slats on it. But if it has texture to it with those slats, it's something, right?
I agree. And then your pearl of wisdom. Sorry.
My pearl of wisdom.
What is a pearl of wisdom you can bestow on the drywall community? I ask everybody. You've had a bunch. You've had a bunch, Foz. Yeah, you're much more broad than I would have expected. I didn't know what to think, but you're very knowledgeable about the construction industry, and very, very easy to talk to. This has been a fantastic interview. But if you could say or put on the billboard something that a little pearl of wisdom you could bestow on the drywall community, what would it be?
I think what I did quote earlier about it's not about your destination, it's about your journey. Like it's not about getting to your destination, it's about the journey to your destination, right? And enjoy the small moments, right? Don't it can be very mundane just going through the motions every day. You got to have fun. You got to laugh. You got to try to create fun for even if you're by yourself. Like when I was taping by myself, like I was trying to dance and record myself being goofy. And, you can't be that way every day, right? Like, my truck is in the shop right now and I'm probably looking at a couple grand in repairs. But you still got to smile, wake up and have fun and have a good day and not let things completely consume you and ruin you. So it's about the journey, right? And you have a choice, either be negative or be happy and positive, and that choice is completely up to you, minute by minute, every day, right?
Yeah, I love it, man. I love it.
Even you're sober yourself, and I wish we talked more about this, but
that's
yeah, I wish we did.
Sorry, it's okay.
But one thing in AA is that this shall too pass, right? And that's something. Yeah. And that's something that I've stuck with me, where it's like, this shall too pass. The good times, the bad times, the mediocre times, like it will all pass. And so how many years have you been sober? I forgot. It's like 10 or 12, isn't it?
19.
19. Holy jeez, man. That is awesome.
Yeah, 20 years, March 11th. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's exciting, man.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's freaking huge. I hope I get to that. I know I will, but I can never go back.
It's a long time to not smoke a joint or have a beer, It gets a little dicey when I'm hanging out with these crazy drywall dudes, that's for sure. But I love it though, just the same. I don't want they just do their thing, and I'm just hanging out. It's a blessing. And for me, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing. Maybe if I was distracted by all that, So
no, that's
we don't get into it too heavy on here, but there's been some guests that have ventured into the realm of sobriety, and I feel like there's an element of inspiration, maybe that comes from talking about it a little bit, or at least what I like to leave people with the idea that, like, if they can talk, if they would like to talk to me, they can message me, or if they would like to talk to Shawn about your experience with recovery, they could reach out. This isn't really a recovery podcast. I think it's there. It's prevalent in the construction industry. And I want people to know that it's okay. Like, people are clean and sober. It is possible. And there are people to talk to.
Yeah. And I will say, like, to attest to it all, like, when I quit drinking, that's when I really excelled at my taping and even at carpentry, because my mind was just clear, and I excelled tremendously at my trades, and life just got a lot better, man. I'm just a lot happier, and I'm a lot better, and my emotions, I don't let things, like, it's just it's a way better life.
Yeah. Not as many hangovers.
No, man. No. I could never go back. Never. I don't know why people do that to themselves. It's beyond me, but, like, I mean, I used to do it to myself every day. Even when I'm sick now, when I get, like, sick with, like, the stomach flu, it reminds me of being hungover.
Yeah.
Like, I can't believe I did this to myself every day.
Yeah. It just is what it is. It's not good or bad or anything like that. Shawn Fawcett, if they want to find you on Instagram, what's your handle?
Fozzie Carpenter 22 or Signature Finish Renovations.
And then What other social media handles can they find you on?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, but I post more of my, like, I guess, social life on there.
Okay.
Just Shawn Fawcett on Facebook. And then I have a signature finish page on Facebook as well.
Okay. And again, like, yeah, if you want to reach out to Shawn, you could, I guess that would be all right too. If somebody wanted to get sober, they want to talk to you about your experience, they could reach out to you or me anytime, of course.
Yeah, man. Like that's how it all started with me too. There's a guy named Brad Gooselink. He's a carpenter, he's pretty popular on Instagram. And he made a post that he was like 8 years sober. And I was like, I think I have a problem. And he's like, yeah, man, you do. And I still drank 2 years after that conversation. Yeah. But when I had my seizure from drinking, I reached out to him and he was like, what's your number? And he called me right away and he talked to me and he was like, man, like, you got to figure this out. And he checked in up on me every like week for a long time. Yep. And it was all because of that post. Like, because of that post that he made, I wouldn't have had a clue that he was. And he was a tremendous help and mentor at first when I first quit drinking. Brad Gooselink. I owe a lot to him.
Shout out to Brad for that. Thank you so much for being on the Drywall Podcast today.
Thanks for having me, man.
This was a pinch in, but there was no anxiety over coming on or any of that. We just got to jump right in and have a great conversation.
Yeah, man. It was a lot of fun. Thank you again for having me.
All right, Shawn, you have a fantastic day and we'll talk soon, buddy.
Yeah, man. Take care.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to Shawn for being with us on the Drywall Podcast today. Much appreciated. Shawn will receive a sweet swag bucket from our friends up in Toronto at CSR just for coming on the Drywall Podcast. Would you like a sweet swag bucket? Send me your information. Reach out directly at info@frescoharmony.com. Or you can message me on Instagram or give me a call, 505-400-9313. I would love to hear your story. Once again, to help us with our outro, the Dark Lord himself and my personal friend, the Devil.
Thank you very much, Nick. It would probably be pretty neat if the people got a little bit of backstory on how you and I met.
Whoa. Maybe another time, Devil. Just stick with the script for now.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us on the Drywall Podcast. Myself and Nick appreciate it greatly. You can listen to the Drywall Podcast on your favorite platforms like Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Okay.
YouTube.
Thank you very much, Devil. We appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys for joining us. Tune in next Friday when we have John Drywall, winner of the Can-Am contest last month, with us. But until then, keep drywalling.